my channel. My name is Anna and I am the Messy Jew. I'm so glad you're here. If you're brand new and this is your first time watching one of my 5 videos, I hope you'll leave a comment and introduce yourself. Let me know what you thought about the video. As you may know, I've been spending the entire month talking all about Shabbat. Remembering and keeping the Sabbath is a commandment by God, and we also know that when Yeshua, Jesus the Messiah, was on earth, he kept the Sabbath, so why shouldn't we? I've been breaking down the key elements that you would find at a traditional Jewish Shabbat dinner on Friday night. They're all beautiful, steeped in tradition, and wouldn't you know it, they all point to the Messiah. In my last video, I talked about how you would light the Shabbat candles, which is the first thing you would do to welcome in the Sabbath. And if you haven't watched that video, you can click the link above and go back and watch it now. Today's video is all about Challah. Now, I just want to throw this in here. I'm not actually going in order with these videos. Typically, your chamotzi blessing, your blessing of the bread, comes after the wine, but I haven't talked about the wine yet. The wine is next, but I really wanted to do the challah videos after the candles because if you want to start baking challah, I'm gonna do a complete tutorial, give you the ingredients and everything you would need to make your own challah. So I thought I'd get this out here first so you can start doing it yourself. So what is challah? Challah, or chalot, literally means in Hebrew portion or even portion of bread. In Numbers chapter 15 verses 17 through 21, God through Moses commands the Israelites to give the first batch of their dough to God as a contribution. This was to be done once they were in Israel throughout their generations as a way of giving God our very best and recognizing that it all comes from Him anyways. Now that word challah has gone through many different variations, but it is now widely recognized as a traditional Ashkenazi, that's the Eastern European Jews like me, bread. It's braided, it's baked with eggs, it's fluffy, and it's delicious. So what does challah bread have to do with Shabbat? This is a really difficult question, and in my research there was a lot of different stories and traditions around it, and it was all very confusing because the loaves that we would have baked in ancient times and used for the temple wouldn't really look like challah, that Ashkenazi Jews, so what did it all have to do with Shabbat? Here's the biggest connection I could find. The challah represents the double portion of manna that God gave us in the wilderness. Now, this is just one of the many symbolic things we find in challah, but in Exodus 16, God has just miraculously led the Israelites and Moses out of Egypt, out of slavery, and wouldn't you know it, they start complaining, they start kvetching and going on and on about how hungry they are. They say we should have just stayed in Egypt, we had 3 meals a day. That's what happened. That's what happened. It says it literally right here. And so they're grumbling and they're complaining. What else is new? And God hears them and He sends them manna. It says in Exodus 16:14, when the layer of dew evaporated, there were fine flakes on the desert surface, as fine as frost on the ground. When the Israelites saw it, they asked one another, what is it? Because they didn't know what it was. Moses told them, it is the bread the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. And He goes on and tells them that every day they can gather what they need for themselves, for the people in their household, but on the 6th day of the week, so for us, Friday, they would get a double portion. They could get what they needed for their household for 2 days. And that way, on Shabbat, on the Sabbath, they wouldn't have to go out and gather the manna. Well, somebody did try to go out and gather manna on Shabbat, and there was nothing there. And this is what God said to them. Verse 28, then the Lord said to Moses, how long will you refuse to keep my commandments and instructions? Understand that the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, on the 6th day, He will give you 2 days' worth of bread. Each of you stay where you are. No one is to leave his place on the 7th day. So the people rested on the 7th day. And so that's the second piece of symbolism you'll find with the challah. At a typical Shabbat dinner, there are going to be 2 loaves of challah, and that represents the double portion of manna. Not only did God give us Shabbat and a day of rest set aside unto him, but he gave us the means to be able to keep that rest. And who doesn't like leftover challah? It's good for sandwiches, it's good for French toast. I've made cinnamon rolls out of the dough. So many good things. So you always make 2 loaves. So beyond the portion or challah that we gave to God in temple times, and beyond the double portion of manna that he gave us, there's a lot more symbolism baked right into challah. For example, when challah is sitting on the table, it's typically covered with a cloth, and that's just to represent how the manna literally covered the entire ground. Or it might be sprinkled. It'll have sesame seeds or poppy seeds baked on top of it. Sometimes I use the Thai seasoning, so good. And that's just to represent that the manna fell from heaven. The symbolism of challah is even braided into it. My dad's gonna love all of these jokes. Challah is always braided. Sometimes you have 2 loaves that have 3 braids each, and that's to represent the 6 days that we worked leading up to Shabbat. Sometimes each loaf is gonna have 6 braids, which represent total 2 loaves, 6 braids, represents the 12 tribes of Israel. This is the only math I'm gonna do on this. And that's important because in the temple, in the tabernacle, there was some showbread, and it was always 12 loaves for the priest, and that represented the 12 tribes of Israel. If you want to learn more about this, you should be reading the Torah. I'm very like Yiddish grandmother today. Oh, so much symbolism. So now we get to the good part. How does the challah point to Yeshua? You see, during his time on earth, Yeshua literally called himself the bread of life. So in John chapter 6, Yeshua has literally just performed like a bunch of big miracles, and yet there are some people around him who are saying, well, we want to believe in you. Why don't you give us a sign like God gave our people a sign when he gave us the manna from heaven? And so in John 6:32, Jesus responds. He said to them, I assure you, Moses didn't give you the bread from heaven, but my Father gives you the real bread from heaven. For the bread of God is the one who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. Then they said, Sir, give us this bread always. I am the bread of life, Jesus told them. No one who comes to me will ever be hungry, and no one who believes in me will ever go thirsty again. Yeshua is the bread of life. Yeshua is literally the bread from heaven, just like the manna. And he says down in verse 40, For this is the will of my Father, that everyone who sees the Son and believes in him may have eternal life, and I will raise him up on the last day. So when you celebrate Shabbat, wouldn't you want to have something on your table that represents the bread of life, that if you have tasted, if you have looked upon Yeshua, you will never be hungry again? I know I do. So I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about challah and why it's important and why maybe you should start serving it on your Shabbat table. I know for me, my favorite part about challah on Shabbat, it's not just when I'm preparing it, it's getting my heart ready for the Sabbath rest. It's not just that it tastes delicious, because it does, but it's literally the breaking of bread with fellow believers, with family, with friends, with my husband every week. It's been a beautiful thing, and it's something that Yeshua himself did when he was on earth. He was constantly going over to people's homes for dinner. He was inviting himself over for dinner. I think it's a trait. You know, we're all supposed to be more like Yeshua. Maybe we should invite ourselves over for dinner. That's actually something my husband and I have been doing, because we live in a tiny RV and it's kind of hard to host people over for Shabbat. And so we just invite ourselves over to other people's homes, and we're like, we'll cook for you. And they're like, yeah, you should come. So we also saw that this tradition carried on in the early church. In Acts chapter 2, if you will open your Bibles with me here in the New Covenant, in Acts chapter 2, verse 4, and this is talking about the new church, the people who had just accepted the message. They were just baptized. There was about 3,000 people. Verse 42 says, "And they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to the prayers." The author of Luke saw that breaking bread together in fellowship was so important, he put it right up there with prayer. So if you decide to start celebrating Shabbat and you have a Shabbat dinner, I encourage you, invite someone over to partake with you, to break bread together. And if you feel like making some challah, keep following along with me, because in my next video, I'm going to show you how to do it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you'll subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more videos like this. And if you haven't already, you can follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram by the same name, The Messy Jew. And I also have a new Facebook page you can follow. And if you're following me on one of these social media pages, you'll see my weekly Shabbat thought. So I've really been enjoying getting to know people through those pages, so I hope you'll check it out, or you'll comment here. You can always email me too. I've enjoyed some emails from people as well. So I hope you have a wonderful, restful Shabbat this week, and shalom. Down the key elements you would find at a Yeshua, as well as being steeped in tradition. It's a hard word to say today. What happened? And then on the verses, not only did God get poppy seeds baked on top of it, and that's